Look, there's the toilets. That's where all the Arsenal players go when they get injured. A lot of them go there. Wow. So you're probably thinking, why is this guy presenting a series about football? And it's a good question.
I love football. I went to Arsenal youth camp, met Tony Adams, maxed out on charity football matches until I buggered my knee, and even sang backing vocals on Vindaloo. In time-honoured fashion, my dad took me to his club for my first football match, hoping I'd follow in the family tradition. No such luck.
Sorry,
no
mate.
gooners allowed!
Oi! I am a child of the Premier League era. It's all me and my mates have ever known. But I want to know more. England invented association football, its rules, leagues and cup competitions. But how did the English game come so perilously close to ruin before becoming the multi-billion-pound industry it is today? It's the story of an intense power struggle.
It was a master and servant relationship.
The relationship between the manager and the players has got to be close, or if it's not close, respectful.
Extreme highs and lows.
Letter came through the post, said if you put your foot on a Wembley turf, you get one of these for your knees. A bullet came through the post.
Tragedies and disasters that took English football to the brink.
Those things were big contributions to why people died.
And a gamble that saw the English game transform global football.
Any questions?
In the last century, football has become one of the biggest and wealthiest entertainment industries in the world. A monster machine of mega-famous players, ultra-ambitious agents, pricey pay-TV broadcasters, and colossal football clubs.
Wow. I've never been there when it's empty. It's amazing.
But this gargantuan industry wasn't created from a master plan. It was born out of a monumental power struggle as all vied for a slice of the action.
Come on, lads! Come on, for the crowd, for the boys! The fans, that's what it's all about! Come on!
It used to be so simple, or so it seemed. 100 years ago, English football was under the control of clubs, leagues, and the FA, who demonstrated their control with an extraordinary show of power. In the First World War, as the country's men fought and died on Europe's battlefields, football at home was understandably a low priority. Traditionally, male jobs were being done by women, who also propelled the war effort, and, amazingly, sustained football too. A phenomena took place in the factories where women manufactured the munitions for the men on the front line. They formed football teams which kept the game alive. The biggest of them all was the Dick Kerr ladies from Preston.
This was the scene of the biggest game they'd ever had on Boxing Day 1920. Yeah, and it was 53,000 you had in attendance.
That's correct, right? Yeah. Yes, and there was between 10 and 14,000 locked out, unable to gain admission. There were so many people about, the players even had to have a police escort to get them safely to the changing rooms.
Wow.
It must have been absolutely amazing.
So how many women were playing football during the war and how many teams were there?
Every factory involved in war work during the war had a ladies' football team. You know, all over the country, teams were being formed.
Despite the continuing popularity of the women's game after the war, the FA decided to flex their muscles and reclaim the game for the men.
On the 5th of December 1921, the FA banned ladies' football and effectively changed the course of the women's game forever. They'd had complaints about women playing, and they expressed their strong opinion that the game of football was quite unsuitable for females and should not be encouraged.
That's insane.
It is absolutely insane.
It could have been so different today, couldn't it? When did the ban end?
1971, 50 years later.
What? Yeah. That's mad. So there was, in effect, a 50-year ban on women's football.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's one of the greatest sporting injustices of the last century.
In the 1920s, the power in football was under the total control of committees of men. And at club level, boards of directors not only picked the team, but often even decided tactics. A challenge to the control of all powerful boardrooms was due, and that first big power shift came when Arsenal recruited a visionary new manager called Herbert Chapman in 1925.
Not only did he lift Arsenal to new heights, he redefined the role of manager within the entire football industry.
Chapman insisted that he and only he picked the team. Not only that, he reinvented playing formations, which saw immediate results. The new tactics saw the team from Highbury rocket to the top end of the league.
Here we are. It's kind of weird for me being back here. I can only imagine what it's like for you. Should we go and have a look?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Chapman and Sol are both veterans of Highbury Stadium, but now it's apartments. Heavenly homes for Gooners.
These are the famous steps.
These are, aren't they? After you, after you.
Wow.
This is your manor. I guess it's my manor as well.
Yeah. Marble steps, marble halls.
Here he is,
Yeah.
the man himself, Herbert Chapman.
Fantastic.
Crazy. As a player of the club, and just as a football man, were you aware of the legacy he had within Arsenal, but also within football itself?
Yeah, I think obviously, you know, him coming in with a new idea of how to play systems, you know, almost, pardon the pun, kind of set in stone, allowed Arsenal to have a different type of football, more expansive kind of football. He was definitely a cornerstone and the beginning of that.
Definitely.
Sure.
I guess it's time to go and visit the pitch, see if it's still there.
Hopefully it is still there. I think it's gardens.
If it is still there, can we have a kickabout?
Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking about see what's happening. Do some sliding tackles. Oh, some games on there.
I bet, mate.
Well, it's still a decent pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's better than some pitches in the Premiership, still.
Without a doubt. Chapman was really the first true football manager of his day, revolutionary and authoritative. Would you say that that's the best model for a modern-day manager, an all-seeing, all-controlling force?
Like most things back in the days, you know, there was opportunities for someone to come in and mould it and make it theirs. I think at the time, he came along with lots of fantastic ideas.
Chapman's ideas included making the brown ball a more visible white, changing the local tube station's name from Gillespie Road to Arsenal, and pioneering floodlighting. His power and influence over the club set a precedent for the role of managers that lasted nearly a century. Manchester United's Matt Busby, Tottenham's Bill Nicholson, and Liverpool's Bill Shankly enjoyed powers pioneered by Chapman, as did modern managers like Sir Alex Ferguson and, of course, Arsene Wenger.
Chapman himself was a reformer, and I guess Wenger had been at the club 5 years previous to what you had been. And I guess he kind of set himself up as a kind of a reformer of the Premier League. What were your impressions of him before you arrived?
I think with Arsene coming to a club that needed that type of mentality, that type of vision, you know, I believe that he extended a lot of the players' careers for at least 3 to 4 to 5 years, easily, with the just change of diet and how you think about the game. It was ahead of the game. Everybody caught up. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying. People followed suit after he arrived,
yeah.
without a doubt. Like you said, diets and everything. I can't remember, I heard some story maybe about him banning ketchup or something.
Yeah, I think he banned a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It was probably hard for them to take because they probably wasn't used to it. But as time went on and the results came, and then obviously attitudes changed as well, and I think the players took it on. Obviously, winning games helps.
What's Wenger like as a man? He's got quite an icy media image. What's he like as a friend, as a person?
Yes, there's an icy side there because you had to be kind of cool and almost not ruthless, but this is what I want to do. You know, this is where I feel Arsenal or my football club should be going, or this individual should be acting like this. But the relationship between the manager and the players is got to be close and or if it's not close, respectful.
What do you think the most important aspect of being a manager is?
The main thing is have your philosophy, but also be able to manage players and get the best out of them, and see who needs an arm around the shoulder, he needs a kick up the rear end, and you know, that kind of stuff. You're feeling when the team needs a break, or you're training too hard, or you need to add the training. Just manage players.
Yeah. ever see yourself being a manager?
Yeah, I'm working towards that now.
Are you doing your badges?
Yeah, I've done them. Ready for anything. I'm ready to roll my sleeves up and be a wonderful manager.
Well, good luck, Sol. Arguably, it's harder surviving as a manager these days.
On the centre spot of
Centre
Highbury.
spot.
I'll never forget this. Ever.
Maybe it is this. Maybe it is.
Is it, isn't it?
Could be.
Oh, wow.
I think it is.
I think it is, you know.
Despite conceding some control to managers, football clubs still held an enormous amount of power. And no one was more affected by this than the club's most important employees, the players. The employment laws that tied footballers to clubs were relics of the Victorian age. Players were subject to a maximum wage and forced to sign to one club for life. The next battle in football was a long time coming, but enough was enough. In the late 1950s, it was time to fight for player power.
There's no one better to tell us about the extreme changes at this time than the man who runs this establishment.
Gordon Taylor has been at the helm of the Professional Footballers Association since 1978. The organisation was born out of the fight against the restrictions players had been saddled with from the inception of the professional game.
What were the problems that they faced in terms of that sort of relationship that they had?
They couldn't move at the end of a contract. They were tempted to go to other clubs. They would be offered jobs, etc. But they were solely in the control of the club. Late 19th century, early 20th century, it was a master and servant relationship.
Although society was changing, football wasn't changing with it. The Players' Union was formed in 1907, but it took another 50 years for players to wield enough influence to challenge their Victorian status as wage slaves.
After the Second World War, there was 48 million a year watching the game. Conditions weren't brilliant, but the money was going somewhere, and it certainly wasn't going in the players' pockets. The maximum wage had moved up from about 4 to just, I think, some £20. While slaves was an emotive word, they were tied to the club. They could even be offered less money and couldn't move to a club of their choice.
The arrival of televised European football in the 50s brought more revenue for clubs, but no financial benefits to the wage-controlled players. Players locked into clubs forever by archaic contracts called retain and transfer. And if they upset their paymasters, players could be sidelined and see their wages reduced to a pittance. In 1957, the PFA brought in a new, modern chairman who would take on these Victorian rules that benefited only the clubs and the Football League.
Things changed pretty dramatically when Jimmy Hill sort of came into the fold, not the least the name of the organisation.
Jimmy brought to it his own particular style, his own charisma, and it was probably the right man at the right time to lead the organisation. And what started off really as an effort to remove the retain and transfer system was almost put on a back burner because people could easily focus on the removal of the maximum wage.
With mounting public opinion on their side, Jimmy Hill and his union brothers, including Gordon Taylor, mounted a high-profile campaign and in 1961 voted to make an unprecedented stand. Football would go on strike for the first time ever. Panic ensued.
You played under the maximum wage then?
Yes, I did, and I remember they had meetings regionally. One of the meetings was in Manchester, and the Bolton senior players went, and one delegate from Bury stood up and said, I don't think we should be striking over the maximum wage. My father's a miner, and he doesn't earn as much as £20 a week. And everybody went quiet. And then Tommy Banks, who was a full-back for Bolton, played with England, and he had a very broad Bolton accent. I hear what they says, brother. He said, and I've every respect for your dad's job. I've been down to that coal face. I know how tough it is. He said, but I tell you what, you try telling your dad to come up out of that coal pit next Saturday afternoon and mark brother Stanley Matthews. and it sort of brought the house down, and as a result everybody put their hands up and they were all going to strike. And then the same happened in London, and then the Football League caved in and Jimmy had a great victory and then moved on into management and TV. Tommy Trinder was a very famous comedian. He was chairman of Fulham, and he went in public to say, well, if the players succeed in removing the maximum wage, I will then pay Johnny Haynes, who was his star inside forward and England player, £100 a week instead of 20. And then suddenly, of course, it did happen, and he had to pay him £100 a week. And Johnny Haynes always made us laugh, really, because he said, yeah, he kept his promise then, but he never got another penny increase throughout the rest of his career.
2 years after the abolition of the maximum wage, in 1963, the courts ruled retain and transfer illegal. Footballers were finally free to control their careers. But the new higher incomes and media exposure saw footballers shift from wholesome everyday heroes to something new.
I guess this was a time when footballers were kind of becoming celebrities in a way. Players like George Best, in kind of contrast to players like Bobby Charlton that we'd had, who were your traditionally footballing heroes.
There were sort of true sporting heroes that you would have, and then suddenly the more celebrity status that film stars, pop stars started to come into football when you had the likes of George Best, who won the World Cup, but it was also the Beatles, and there was a freedom about the 60s and 70s that expressed itself in football.
Football basked in the glory of the World Cup win. Players now had power, wealth, and profile. As a new era of celebrity dawned, newly empowered footballers needed someone to protect their interests. Cue the football agent.
The rise of the agent was inevitable given the game's growing riches back in the 1960s, but now with more money than ever in the game, we also have more football agents than ever, literally thousands. So what I want to know is, how does the job compare now to back then? Hopefully I'll find out. Hello.
New Era has a big client base of players past, present and future. Rio Ferdinand, Harry Redknapp, Andy King and Ashley Williams have all put their trust in them to manage their careers and lives on and off the pitch. As has a legendary striker from the most successful team ever of the Premier League age.
This man needs no introduction. I'm kind of
No, you need nothing.
To be fair, I've never seen his face drop how it dropped when you walked in, so...
We're both trying to keep our cool, you know what I mean? The salaries have reached an astronomical level in the game these days. Is that a huge pressure?
I honestly don't think so. I look at it now and it's entertainment's business. It's like your field.
I agree.
You can't begrudge anyone whatever they earn at football. No.
While football as global entertainment has propelled some players to unimaginable levels of celebrity, for others the rise of player power came at a high personal price. Rock and roll lifestyles, it transpired, were not compatible with sport.
There's a fair amount of vices and traps that footballers can fall into. Tony Adams has done a lot to sort of bring this to the fore, as has the PFA. How bad can that get for the agent-player relationship? And I mean, you must have seen it all.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I was briefly with Tony at Arsenal, and you touch about vice. I think when you're young men, young gentlemen, and you still want to do what young guys do. You want to go out for a drink or whatever it may be, and yeah, you're more inclined to fall into those vices because your income. It could be a drink, it could be drugs or whatever. I think there's a lot more support now because people don't believe professional footballers could be under any pressure because they perceive it as he's getting paid all this money.
People in the world, yeah, of course.
He's getting paid all this money, and you know.
It's boredom as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's boredom for the guys. I think if you finish training, say you leave Carrington at 2:30, and you haven't got a missus and you haven't got kids because you're a 19, 20-year-old earning lots of money, there's going to be traps along the way.
Yeah.
You know, what else are you going to do till tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock?
Agents have become an essential part of the support system for players whose lifestyles are now more complex than ever.
The agent's role was definitely propelled in the 60s. Fundamentally, the crucial job of the agent, is it still the same nowadays as it was back then?
I think there's a lot more added to an agent's role now in terms of for the player than there potentially was back then, and maybe even a time in Andy's career. But the generation at the minute seemed to, you know, from hotels, restaurants, car insurance, house insurance, mortgages, clothes, shoes, games, Xboxes. So a lot of the off the pitch duty as well is in the agent's hand.
If you got a good agent, you know, what the public don't understand, an agent basically, he's cleaning up things for you, he's trying to keep you going, he's trying to keep you motivated. And I know people will look at agents and say, well, they're taking a hell of a lot of money out of the game or whatever maybe, but if you got a good one, he's your father figure. Unfortunately, the generation now, they want to run before they can walk. You can speak to a lot of the younger guys now, they play football because the trappings are fantastic.
It's the lifestyle, really.
I reckon 60-70% of the change room are talking about more about the clothes and the new trainers that are out.
I remember when I started counting to my end of my career, I was at Nottingham Forest, and you go and you play and you get beat 2 or 3-0 or whatever. And the first thing that come off in the dressing room on a coach back is, where are you going tonight? And when I started hearing that, I said, my time's up.
Totally,
my
man.
time is up.
I get it.
Our mentality was to win games. When I try to win the FA Cup, when I try to win the European Cup. And we wasn't worried about the trappings, oh, you're getting the right few good. No, forget about that, because when you retire, everyone looks back and says, that great team.
In the 1970s, power within football had found a balance. Managers had autonomy, players decided their own careers, and clubs were making money. Happy days? No. The game was about to face its darkest times, threats that were far beyond the control of football. Thanks to post-war immigration, Britain was changing into a multicultural society, and not everyone was best pleased. Far-right groups were gaining national prominence, and there was some serious social turmoil brewing. One young immigrant from French Guiana would prove to be part of a revolutionary moment in football, yet witnessed the worst aspect of external forces on the game.
So, Portobello Road. Yeah. Pretty iconic street in West London. You moved to the UK aged 4 or 5?
Five.
In
1963.
1963, exactly. Yeah. What were your memories of this place? What was it like back then? Do you remember?
Oh, well, it wasn't like this now. 1963, came on the Cunard line, Escania. My dad was here in 62. He rented a room in 383, and myself, my brother, my mum came in 63. We all lived in one room here. Coming here to look at where I lived, I can't remember ever doing that. Yeah. So this is quite touching, really, quite emotional. Finding housing was tough. All you saw was no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. But as a young kid coming here, you just got on with stuff, didn't you? You don't know the stresses and strain that your parents have gone through, trying to find work, trying to find housing.
Cyril left school at 16 and became an apprentice electrician on a building site. But at a Sunday League football match, he was spotted by the manager of Molesey. He spent 3 years pursuing both careers, completed his apprenticeship and scored dozens of goals. Then came his big break at West Bromwich Albion.
Within 6 weeks of coming off the building site and playing for Hayes, I'm making my debut.
Cyril joined an established black player, Laurie Cunningham, at the club, and a third, Brendan Batson, followed soon after. Since its inception in 1888, professional football had star black players, beginning with Preston North End's Arthur Wharton. But never had 3 black players been fielded at once. Playing together, they were brilliant and deadly. Borrowing the name from the pop group, they became known as the 3 Degrees.
So all of a sudden, there's 3 of us at West Brom in 1977.
Wow.
Which was radical.
Totally, without a doubt. I mean,
it was absolutely radical.
What was that like to be part of that trinity? And I mean, you were collectively a phenomenon and trailblazers in the game. What were the highlights of that part of your career?
Well, at the time, you don't see it as that. I mean, if you're a football player, you are concentrating on playing well to stay in the side. That's your only real focus.
The 3 Degrees was definitely the sort of first generation of a growing number of brilliant black players on Britain's pitches, you must be immensely proud to have been part of footballing history, or just history.
Looking back at it, definitely, and quite humble that you was at a time in football that inspired the second and third generation. But to hear the likes of Ian Wright or Dwight York said, you know, you inspired us to be footballers because when we saw you playing, it inspired us to play football.
But there was a far less enjoyable side to life. The highly visible and successful trio became the focus of racists on the terraces. The National Front were actively stirring up racial hatred at football grounds across the country.
Millwall, Chelsea, West Ham, Birmingham, Newcastle, Leeds, you know, 5,000 to 10,000 fans shouting racist abuse at us, you know, so yeah, it was quite horrific at the time.
Yeah, I bet.
The National Front was, you know, trying to recruit from the hooligan element in football. So you had the football games, people selling National Front and trying to recruit. So it was a tough time for being a black player. And the worst I had it was back in 1981. I got my first England call-up. We used to get letters and post, and a letter came through the post that said, if you put your foot on a Wembley turf, you get one of these for your knees. A bullet came through the post. My first England call-up.
A bullet through the... That would definitely scare the crap out of me. Without
Well, you know, you got to overcome those barriers.
Of course, yeah.
Our teammates were great. They used to support us, and the manager, Big Ron. But it did make you angry, you know, being singled out, and all that racist abuse of bananas and monkey chants and that kind of stuff. But it's what you do with that emotion. We went out and said, right, I'm going to show you how good I am.
Yeah.
I want to work harder, put that ball in the back of the net, win the game, and that was our answer.
The racist movement was on the brink of becoming a political force until the election of a new Prime Minister took the electoral wind out of the National Front's sails, thanks to her own hardened attitudes towards immigration.
I think it means that people are really rather afraid that this country might be rather swamped by people with a different culture. So either you go on taking in 40 or 50,000 a year, which is far too many, or you say, we must hold out the prospect of a clear end to immigration. And that is the view we've taken.
And Margaret Thatcher was no football fan. To the Iron Lady, football fans were like striking miners. One more enemy within to be defeated. And as tensions and troubles on the terraces became increasingly widespread, her government demanded fences in stadiums to control fans. In hindsight, we now have a far better understanding of how and why crowd troubles and riots came about. Partly thanks to the work of people like Professor Cliff Stott, a very clever man who specialises in crowd psychology.
Has your work always been linked to football, or has it sort of gone to other areas?
No, not necessarily straight to football. The work grew out of a study of the poll tax riot. That was my first study, was studying political riots. But only a few months afterwards, I went over to Italy and I was looking at England fans' riot at the World Cup finals in Italy in 1990. Yeah, exactly. And I just thought, hang on a minute, this is the same thing. This is the same dynamics that are causing this kind of problem. And it wasn't about this idea that these hooligans were causing the problem. It was actually the expectation that England fans were hooligans that were leading to really aggressive forms of policing, that were creating the conditions whereby violence and confrontation were happening in these crowd events.
It was a vicious circle seen across 1980s society.
If you think about the 80s, you're talking about a decade of disorder. You've got all sorts of incidents of confrontation. And one of the interesting things about the Hillsborough inquiry here at Liverpool is that it started to ask questions about things like augury and the confrontations that were going on during the miners' strike. And when we look at the 1980s, they're characterised by a particular way of policing those crowd events that's highly questionable. The fencing that killed people in terms of the stadiums fencing people in. Those things were big contributions to why people died at Hillsborough, the Hillsborough Stadium disaster. And a lot of it has been about the fear of crowds and attempts to try to control them. And those attempts to control crowds are what ultimately made Hillsborough fatally unsafe for those people.
Cliff now works with dozens of police forces and football clubs across Europe to change mindsets for the better.
For the last few years, I've been working very, very heavily to try to get people who manage crowds to understand them properly. You need to deal with crowds mostly through communication. and actually to facilitate people's legitimate intentions and behaviours, not necessarily to focus on the control of bad behaviour. And that can be quite a difficult shift to make.
Lessons in football were being learnt the hard way in the 1980s. The 1989 disaster at Hillsborough took 96 lives and led to decades of injustice. That tragedy was preceded by 2 others. In May 1985, a fire ripped through Bradford Stadium, killing 56 and injuring hundreds more. Then, as football mourned, just a fortnight later, 39 football fans died because of confrontations between British and Italian fans at the Heysel Stadium in Belgium. English clubs were banned from European competition indefinitely. Liverpool, England, today. Those tragically lost lives will never be forgotten. Those years in the wilderness were long and hard. As the 1990s arrived, some of England's best players had left for the continent, and the recommendations of the Taylor Report after the Hillsborough disaster had far-reaching consequences. "100 years after creating association football, England had lost control and lost its power. Having sunk so extraordinarily low, a radical plan was needed to save the national game. And it was going to involve an enormous risk.
Major financial challenges.
Some urgency.
Change needed. Pay premium.
Super League of 18 clubs.
A new top-flight league would break away from the century-old Football League to try and reinvent the national game. Leading the creation of the Premier League was Chief Executive Rick Parry.
Perhaps the logic should be that it's time that maybe the armchair fans subsidise the paying spectator rather than vice versa.
Why do you think it was necessary for the leagues to break away from something that had been sort of in working condition for so long?
Well, it wasn't really in working condition. We had the huge impact of the Taylor Report. Post Heysel, Hillsborough, we had to move very rapidly to all-seater stadia. Yeah. And the clubs are thinking, where's the leadership? Where's the money coming from? But the other big plus for us was Sky. They were having a really rough time. They were losing a bundle, were looking for the new big opportunity. And suddenly we said, we're about to form the Premier League. You know, Sky were losing 200 million plus in 91, 92. And all of a sudden, they literally bet the house on the new Premier League.
At this time, there were only 18 televised First Division games a year shown on ITV. To make the much-needed cash to breathe new life into the game, the Premier League needed to show a lot more fixtures and proposed a multi-broadcaster plan.
So we wanted to bring Match of the Day back on a Saturday night. That was always a given. We'll have ITV on the Sunday, the big game. And why don't we try and introduce these newcomers, Sky, with the Monday night game? I think Sky initially would have gone along with that because they were the new kids on the block and they'd have been grateful to get a piece of the Premier League. ITV said, not a cat and house chance, it's exclusive or nothing.
So, Rick and his team decided to take a gamble. Match of the Day plus newcomers Sky would get the lot.
110% convinced that the deal we put before the clubs last week was the right one, which the clubs voted in favour of. Remain convinced of that.
What was the biggest risk in taking the Sky deal? I mean, was there a way that it could possibly even go wrong?
Is this getting too exciting for you?
It's, yeah. I'm heating up a bit.
Okay. There was a risk Sky could go bust. It was almost as if people had been watching live football on television for the last 100 years. It only started in 1982. But, you know, the barrage of publicity was this was a national outrage. There were debates in the House of Commons. As I said, I was 100% public enemy number one.
So, fast forward to today, did it change football around the world?
I remember in 92, UEFA being very, very critical of what we were doing. They didn't like it at all. Whereas now the Champions League tends to be on pay TV. You look right across the major European leagues, they've got pay TV deals. I mean, it's a much purer form of television to me, because at the end of the day, you pay for what you want to watch.
I'm here at Liverpool versus West Brom. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this TV show is because I get to go behind the scenes at a football game. There's talk of me even going down the tunnel. I've just seen Michael Owen get out of a car. It's all pretty crazy. Let's go and check it out.
The Premier League's pioneering pay TV deal transformed the model of European football and made the English top flight the richest league in Europe. Its revenue is bigger than the Spanish and Italian leagues' annual income combined. The thirst for televised football, which the industry initially feared would kill match attendances and ruin the game, has proved the key to unlocking unimaginable success. It's also lured new broadcasters into the industry, keen to share the spoils.
If you go back in time 40 or 50 years, footballers and football managers, they would not believe. If you went back to the 60s and you brought them here and you said, this is football in 2016, they'd be like, it would be unrecognisable to them.
It's kind of where the power lies now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Exactly. Guys, this is Alfie, who I'm showing around the track.
Hi, how you doing? You all right? Nice to meet you all.
Alfie, look, the Arsenal picked her up.
Amazing.
You're not an Arsenal fan, are you?
I am. Sorry.
So, Robbie, Michael and Steve, and basically what happens is that we go on air at 5 o'clock, so the guys will sit in here from 3 o'clock and they'll get the chance to see all the matches coming in, because then obviously when we go on air, we'll ask them about the game and they have to know about all the other matches that are happening.
Yeah.
And, don't look. Right, get out of here, we're out of here, we're done.
Are we back here at 3, lads?
Sadly, those are the only 3 former players we could get.
Take care.
Unbelievable.
How was it for you coming to BT, the new kids on the block? Were you nervous about it, seeing as it was always been about Sky?
Yeah, I was nervous because Sky, who are the sort of standard broadcaster in the UK when it comes to Premier League football, have been around for 25 years, and there was us kind of arriving and trying to do our thing, and immediately you're going to be compared against the people who've been doing it for a long time. It's just about trying to do it your way, really, and I suppose the big thing for me always as a presenter has been, if I'm just going to not bring any of my own personality or my own opinions or my own thoughts to the job, I might as well not be doing it. You have to say, right, why am I the person to do this? It's like an acting role that you would do. Why are you the person for that role, though, not somebody else? You have to give them a reason to pick you, because there's a lot of people that want to do your job or want to do my job.
You began your career in sports, I think, in 2005. Doing sport. Yeah, definitely. Have you seen sort of much change in the Premier League in that time that you've been involved?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the Premier League just gets bigger and bigger and bigger every single year.
Yeah.
I mean, we're standing in here now, and a very quick count, there's probably, 30, 40 vehicles in here, in this tiny car park.
There's a lot of cameras.
But then you also turn around and you see that, which is the new stand here at Anfield, and the reality is that that new stand has been built by the money that comes from this.
Yeah.
And the players that are running out today earning 150 grand a week has been created because of the money that comes from the broadcasters. And it's phenomenal. Nothing draws the fans, not just in the UK, but around the world, like Premier League football does.
Can you see more of a sort of globalisation in terms of where it's going to go? Is that what the fans want, do you think?
I've had a chance to travel the world, obviously. When I was working in Formula 1, I went to every continent. And you don't land as an F1 presenter and see loads of Red Bull and McLaren and Ferrari tops. You see Manchester United and Liverpool and Arsenal shirts everywhere, Asia, Africa, India. It's all about Premier League football. And we're just a broadcaster just in the UK. When the game kicks off, what we film with these cameras in these trucks goes around the world. It's huge.
As my journey into the history of football comes to an end, immersed here backstage in the heart of the Premier League's broadcasting revenue machine, I can see for myself the transformative power of modern-day football on TV. But looking to the future, what lies ahead?
Simple question, probably not a simple answer. Where does the power in football lie now?
The major power in football in England lies with the money, so it lies with the Premier League. The English football clubs are now owned by people from all over the world, managed by people from all over the world, played by people from all over the world.
I think if we look beyond Europe, what's really interesting is what is happening in China. The president has stated he wants to stage the World Cup and probably wants to win the World Cup, making a huge investment in teams in China and, of course, teams right across Europe, including England.
The players have got into a position where they have potentially more power than ever before, but it's really important that in having that power, it's used for the benefit of the game. You are privileged compared to your predecessors. You need to know what your predecessors went through.
The 20th century power struggle in football made it worldwide entertainment on an unprecedented scale. Clubs, players, agents and broadcasters all fought for a share of an ever-expanding global industry. and made billions along the way. But let's not forget, all this power would and could not exist if it wasn't for the most vital part of the football equation, the support of the fans. And I hate to admit it, but there's nowhere better to experience the power of the fans than here at Anfield.
This, in my opinion, is one of the most amazing moments in football. Musically, it is more rousing, evokes more passion. Even as an Arsenal fan, I've got to admit it, it's pretty incredible.